But make no mistake, 2017 has been the year of Alexa Bliss.
Did you miss me?
The show is about to start. Thank you for your cooperation. Enjoy the show, and please come back and visit us again.
Okay, everyone, welcome to the 9 Years podcast with Nick Draper and Stuart Deakins, and today a very special guest indeed. We'll be talking to former Wimbledon manager Dave Anderson about some of his time at the club and his thoughts on the current side and the current non-league scene. Dave and Stu and I, we could have spoken for hours. We did speak for about, well, how long was it in the end? About an hour and a half, I think?
Yeah, easily.
And we could have talked forever, to be honest with you, with so many memories. Such a great chat we had, such a great guy, absolute legend actually, Dave Anderson. So we're going to keep our part, which you'll be glad to hear, down to a very bare minimum this week, so we can give you as much of that interview as possible. So Stu, we're just going to go straight into it and talk very briefly about the defeat, our big European defeat to the Polish side on Saturday just gone, Warsaw 2-1 defeat, and lots of things to talk about. But I mentioned to you prior that I wanted to talk about Neil Lardley's post-match comments, because immediately following the game I thought he might struggle to say anything that he hadn't said about 10 times before this season about dominating possession, territory, chances, all those sorts of things, and being perhaps unlucky. But he came out afterwards and said it was a lack of focus, energy and discipline at the start of the game. And you've picked up on this, I think, in one regard that really did cost us massively.
Yeah, so I wasn't there Saturday because I was at a wedding, so I did miss...
hold on, sorry, stop. How was Priscilla Queen of the Desert?
No, I definitely was at a wedding. And it was a lovely wedding. It was a lovely wedding. But yes, it did mean that I missed out great European defeat by Warsaw. But yeah, do you know what? When I saw you, obviously we don't script this. Of course we don't. We just do this off the cuff. But when I saw you talking about the comments that Neil Ardley made, I do have to, from what I saw of the goals, I do have to agree to a certain extent. If you break down the goals, first goal, Darius Charles, I think it's a sloppy back pass. You're always taught never to play your ball back between the six. Normally, because you can never know you get a dodgy bounce. We know realistically we're never going to get a dodgy bounce on that pitch. It's a carpet, isn't it? But it does put, if you play it down to George's left foot and you play a straight pass, then George he may still scuff it, but I doubt very much he's going to do what he can probably get a touch and so forth. And he makes that thing. It's a great finish by little Messi anyway, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? You don't expect to get a ball chucked back past you from 25 yards. And then the second goal, it's a very clever goal by Warsaw, but it's really bad from us. If you look at it, Warsaw play very slow, and it all of a sudden hit a diagonal in behind John Mead. Ishmael, who has got pace to burn, I think he was on loan at Burton year before last when I saw him. And all of a sudden what you've got a very slow to quick, and we're caught out. So it's a great goal from Warsaw. But I can see why Neil Ardley said about the lack of focus, and discipline is very much about keeping up with what they're doing and not switching off.
Neil also said that tiredness is only an issue in the latter stages of a game. He's not going to blame it because we had the long trips that we had, Bristol Rovers followed by Oldham in the midweek. He said that it only becomes an issue in the final stage. That's probably why he made the substitutions he did. But is travelling a factor in that regard? And if so, should it be? Because then the fixtures come into question, don't they? If we're having to travel halfway across the country twice in a week prior to this game, we'll sort of had 2 home games. So is that a little bit unfair of the fixture scheduling?
Possibly. I don't think the Saturday games affect you too much, but I do think your midweek games do. If you think about Oldham, from memory, I think Trevor, who's obviously kit man there, I think got in bed about 4 o'clock. So you're thinking most players, depending on where they lived, you think about the Kent guys and Essex guys, they might not have got into bed till 4:30, 5 o'clock, 5:30. You've then got a day off. You've then got you get back in on Thursday. I think your midweek games do cause you a problem when you're travelling. The Saturday games don't, because you can normally travel up the day before. You can get your good preparation in. Yeah, the fixture list we spoke the other week about it, didn't we, John? I don't think they're that fair. We'll also have 2 home games and we have 2 away games. But I think tiredness will come in. I think mentally, I think your tiredness comes in. But then physically, we do work really hard. We work as a team that out of possession, we all get behind the ball. So people like Harry Forrest and that are probably feeling it because he's probably doing more running at this club than he's done at other clubs previously.
And also, we are desperately short of numbers, aren't we? Very thin squad at the minute. Yeah. Well, you can't help that. That's pretty much it for this week.
Cool, that's us done.
Yeah, this is the easiest. Well, how much do I pay you again?
Not enough.
More than enough, I think. That's probably the easiest money you've made all season. But anyway, yes, Dave Anderson. We had a great chat with Dave, and all I'm going to say is, here it is, and enjoy. All right, 3 seasons in charge of AFC Wimbledon, but the job that Dave Anderson did in his time at Kingsmeadow laid foundations that have lasted much, much longer. A Ryman League Championship, Senior Cup, a record 78-game unbeaten run, and 2 very famous FA Trophy wins at Aldershot and Gravesend, if I remember correctly. But Dave, we'd actually like to start with you at the start, really, of your reign in charge. Good place to start, isn't it, at the beginning? A huge job you had in remodelling, I guess, not only a squad of first-team players, but a football staff as well that would allow us to progress. Was that part of your remit when you were given the job, or did the football club simply say to you, your job is to get us up, is to get us promoted?
Well, going back to, I remember having an original interview in a little chef, funny enough, with Chris Stewart and one other director who I can't remember off the top of my head, who was actually did some scouting and that as well. Can't remember his name. We used to call him Houllier. That was his nickname, you know. And one of the girls from obviously The Office. So I remember sitting in Little Chef thinking this is a bit strange, you know, to be in a Little Chef doing it. But I warmed to Chris Stewart really quickly. And there was stuff that came out in that first initial meeting that I sort of, like the players, I think, were being paid 52 weeks because obviously the guys didn't know any better and wanted to do it right. And I said, you know, straight away, most players in non-league at the level we were at were paid 40 weeks, which was the season. And then staff would have been 46. And obviously the managers, 52 weeks, not because it was me, but because obviously our job is every 24 hours every day. But and so I remember that thinking, you know, they should know that because that's wasting money. And I was just sort of quite upfront and honest in all my meetings with them. But the big deal when it went to the second interview, which was I remember it being like sort of 2 hours in a hotel. I remember Eric being there, Cookie, Chris Stewart again, Ivor might have been in there as well. And I remember that being like, I came out of that. It takes a lot to give me a sore head because I can talk all day, as you both know. But I came out of that and I thought, well, you know, if I don't get it, I'll sleep easy because it sort of went well. But part of that was, you know, what do you think we are? What do you think we should be? Have you seen us play? And I had been to a game, couldn't believe the potential. But straight away we came up with promotion out of Ryman North or South, or whatever it was, Ryman 1 in the first season, and then promotion out of the Ryman Premier within 2 seasons. And that was always the agenda. I think I might have drew it up. Actually, I think I might have come up with it. And, you know, we all thought that was a reasonable shout. And that's how it started. So from that, when I got the job, got into the club, I knew straight away that I'd got issues behind the scenes that, you know, to be fair, I never really publicised them. I've been away from the club over 10 years now, and it's only, I did an interview with the Wombos down under, and it had come out in little bits and pieces, but I told the whole story because I think it's moved on. It's time, you know, it's no big deal now. I'm not, I thought it wasn't beneficial to the club or me or anyone to bring that sort of stuff out. One, when I was there, 2, shortly after I left. So I just didn't think it would benefit the club. But I think now supporters of the club have got a right to know the history. And from my eyes, I mean, I'm not saying that it's the Bible, but it's from my eyes and my view of the club when I took it over. It really was a pub team, not fit, not particularly well. This is my opinion. Not particularly well organised. Struggled to book a coach because of behavioural problems away from the pitch. So yeah, that's what it was. And now if I'm going to win the league next year, then I know I've got to sort that out quickly. So that's the crux of the start of it, if that makes sense. Well, it's having to deal with the magnitude of what the football club was. I remember I got off the plane from Portugal. I was playing golf, and there was an open day, and I said to the chairman, look, I'll be there. I literally went from Luton Airport to Wimbledon, and my wife and kids, who were both very young then, came with me, and it was just like, wow, I thought the Red Arrows were coming or something. Do you know what I mean? It was like, there was like thousands. Yeah. And I'm going, well, this is a different ball game straight away. So, but I never shied from that. That's what attracted me, in all honesty. The story of what had happened and how the club had been franchised off was something that grew on me after I became the manager. I didn't come in as Superman who wanted to save football because of the way the FA had treated, well, Wimbledon supporters. That grew on me when I got in the door and found out the story, if you know what I mean.
It's interesting, David, when you're saying about obviously being a pub team behind the scenes. How do you get a head around that? Because you've obviously got, if you've got a pub team in terms of the back office and all that sort of thing behind it and the squad, but you've got, let's be realistic, a League Two club for attendance wise in terms of fan base. How did you get your head around it? What did you prioritise? Did you prioritise your team first, or did you prioritise getting the back? Like you said about coaches. What did you prioritise first?
Yeah, I think that when I talk about a pub team, I mean within the dressing room. I always thought the club within the offices, and I think that. Listen, if I'd have learned as quickly as the people in the office and the board learned, I'd have went to the Premier League, because they picked stuff up really quickly, and they're intelligent people, and I still speak to Eric to this day, and I still have some great laughs with him, and we always did debate, stroke argue, which I think we both genuinely enjoyed. So I didn't mean that side of it.
More the squad, yeah.
Yeah, I mean within the squad. And I'd already earmarked, I'm guessing, 6 Hendon players, plus the Hendon staff to come with me, because when you've got to hit the ground running, you have to have people that you can rely on, that you trust, that can deal with it, as much as you don't really know that until they get in the door, because it's not something that any other non-league club had. A football league crowd and a Raymond one sort of team. So it was something that I, as my daughters kindly brought me in a cup of tea, So that's what threw me. The shock of it, guys, more than anything, So, but so it was when I got into it. I knew I was bringing the guys with me. I knew they'd bring something to the dressing room. And then I met the squad, and you always give it the old, everyone will get a fair chance, and I think I can genuinely say that everyone did get a fair chance. But I felt the guys I was bringing, if I could pick people who were at the club that was better than the people I was bringing in, I'd be delighted. And I would have done that. But I found very quickly, with individuals at the club, that I think they got too big for their boots, if I'm being blunt, and thought they were bigger than the manager, which is something that can happen. thought that they could stroll through what the team was and behave like they wanted, and that was made very plain and very clear very quickly. And that's what it was. So, and in them early stages, there was big names that the crowd loved that I moved on. And I don't think it's right to go into individuals and, you know, I didn't like him because of this and I let him go because of that. But if I'm right, I think up until maybe Danny Nesbitt, who I'd signed as a goalkeeper, every player that I released from the club never played at a higher level. So I always would justify it in my own head that it was the right decision because of that.
And I think you're right in terms about players being treated as heroes. I remember very well when you come in, because of course we had Kevin Cooper who scored loads of goals before that, we had Dan Hawkins, all those sort of players who I think as fans we loved because they were characters, and I suppose they were without being disrespectful, were sort of suddenly that sort of combined counties rival one level. You must have got a lot of grief early on, because I remember you bought a lot of Hendon players in, you got rid of a lot of so-called heroes, and I think Wimbledon fans at that time didn't know any different about non-league, and of course you come in with a vast knowledge of non-league experience. Did you find it really tough early on, sort of like, or do you feel under pressure by bringing your guys in and getting rid of these so-called heroes at the time?
Yeah, I mean, I'd made a decision in the early stages to try and, with my staff, who I often feel never really got as much credit as they deserved when the story moved on. They were a big part of the reshaping at that time. But we decided to treat the dressing room as if it was any other non-league dressing room. And we decided to try and make the decisions as if we were at Hendon or Harrogate or any other non-league club you want. And whatever would be after that. In other words, if we're going to get stick for this, we've got to be sure that we're right. And if we're sure that we're right, then I'll take the stick. And I think if I was going to blow my own trumpet, which I'm never really that comfortable doing. I joke about it, but I genuinely mean that when I say that that's one of the reasons I was the right guy, because I could take that on. I could go, listen, Danny Hawkins is gone, Kevin Cooper's gone. I remember the big goalkeeper, great lad, and I still speak to him to this day. What was his name? He was goalkeeping coach down at Lewis after that. But sort of, so I moved players on, and in my head knew and felt it was the right decision for the football club, and thought, whatever I get when I go down this tunnel onto the pitch, I'm going to deal with, and I'm going to try and ignore to a degree, because I understand how football fans feel and how they've built a relationship with these players over the last couple of years. I've walked in the door, that half of them couldn't understand me for the first 4 months because of the accent, but I just felt that this was my chance to be at a big club, and I had to prove to myself I had the balls for it, for want of a better description. And I think in the long run that was good for AFC Wimbledon as well.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, undoubtedly. With the change over the squad then, you mentioned the length of contracts. Was there an issue getting players out the door if they were on 52-week contracts? Or did they actually come to an end before the end of the season? How did it work? Was there an issue?
Yeah, I don't think they were all on contracts, if I remember right, but they were being paid for 52 weeks, so they were signed. I think any contracts that I undertook, I think Joe Sheeran might have been on a contract, which was no problem because I loved him. And if not for injury, Joe could have played all the way up the divisions until the conference. But I just felt he was plagued with injury, and his lifestyle probably contributed to that. But at that stage, I say that because I'm very similar myself. But I loved him as a player, as a person. Thought he was a real genuine lad, and had a real affection for him, you know. So he might have been contracted, and off the top of my head, I'm not sure who else. But in the main, I had a free rein to sort of do what I wanted, and with the lads on contract, and I think it might only have been Joe. I'm not sure if Matt Everard was, but I'd be telling lies if I said I knew exactly. But I remember it not being an issue. I remember speaking to Kevin Cooper, and to be fair, Kev admitted it years and years later at one of the do's on stage with a mic, which he didn't need to, because I'd sort of put it to bed. But there was an issue where I'd said to Kev that I wanted him to prove his worth, you know, and there was a disagreement about he wanted a contract before I'd really seen what he was about. I knew about him, you know, he was one of the players that I did know about, as I did obviously Bass, because you know, Simon had played at Aldershot and that. But and he had sort of said that I'd more or less chucked him out the club and not offered him anything. So there was a bit of sort of games played there and then, but I stood my ground, and Kev left as well. But we get over it years later, and it's no big deal now. So it wasn't as difficult as it would have been if they were on 2-year contracts. And I went, listen, who's going to walk? My big thing about contracts at AFC Wimbledon at that time is I would often say, why do we want him on contract? Who's going to leave here? Who's going to sign for this club and leave? And if they do, I'll drop them at the station. Do you know what I mean? So,
it's a great argument.
Yeah, so I was trying to sign players and say, what are you on? I'm on 120 quid. Well, I'll give you 100 quid. So take a £20 pay cut and come and play in front of this. So that was a way. That was a way. So I never. Obviously, then if you get talent in your dressing room who you could sell to higher divisions and football league clubs at that time, then certainly you've got to think about contract. But contract, walk out the door there. I was going to say 10-3. Walk out at 1:30. You know, I used to kid what I remember being at Harrogate years later, and we were at. I know I'm digressing a wee bit, but we were at Maidstone. I think the gate that day was something like 1,700, 1,800. And the lad said when they came in, and I was joking with him on the banter in the dressing room, he says, brilliant, it was 1,800, that was brilliant. And I said, we used to get more than that watches warm up at Wimbledon, lads. You know, don't be getting carried away with it, you know. So there's fun and games with it, but I'm sorry for digressing.
No, it's great.
Not at all. We were actually going to move on and discuss when you came in. You came in and took over a team that, I guess, the fans, we have to take a bit of culpability here because we didn't, well, I say culpability, it's not the right word, but we didn't really know non-league at all. So fans, I mean, myself and Stu, I remember very clearly at the time when you first came in, believe me, we're not just saying this on the show, but we had no issues whatsoever. I think we were delighted that you came in and were putting your stamp on things and taking us forward. We could see that. Obviously, not knowing non-league, a lot of our fans would have looked at a team that had gone the previous season unbeaten. We're actually in the middle of the big unbeaten run, something like 56 games at that point or something like that. And in their head, they're probably thinking, well, surely these players deserve the opportunity, which is, again, our fans' naivety, perhaps, about non-league and actually what was involved. But anyway, sorry, I've digressed there because my whole point there was the unbeaten run. And when you first came over, at what point did you become aware that this was a thing, to be honest with you? We'd got through the season unbeaten, which I think we were all looking at. I think it was exactly the same season that Arsenal did it. And we sort of get lost because of that. But then when you took over, when did you sort of become the thing that actually there's a record here that we could take? And how much pressure did that put on?
Oh, yeah. It's funny. It never really, because you come into a new club and you obviously half of the dressing room's new. No one had sort of mentioned it to me. It was one of them that nobody had really said. I was aware the club had been unbeaten the season before, because obviously when you're doing your homework for interviews and stuff like that, but it's not something you register. You don't think, well, if we go on, but I never think about records. I just think. So it was never an issue, and then we got off to a good start. We're doing okay. I And I remember, and I have an awful memory, but I remember being at, let me get the place right, Horsham.
Yes.
Was it Horsham when we came back from, I think we might have been 1-0 down.
I think, was that when we scored 2 very late goals?
Really, Rob Ursel might have scored a penalty.
Yes.
And Steve Butler, I remember, scoring right at the death.
Good memory, it was.
And I remember the atmosphere. I remember looking at it, and me and John Turner have spoke about it many times. We call it pipe and slipper days, when you're, which I am now. I'm retired in my rocking chair with my pipe and my slippers on, send a JT across the way. Do you remember that day at Horsham? It's one of them where that stand facing the dugouts was just, it was like any league game. It was like a football league game, and to win it that late on. And it was after that, someone said to me about it, oh, that keeps the run going, or that, da-da-da-da. And then the one I remember as a person was Aideen. Aideen that works at the club?
Yeah.
The Irish girl? Yeah. She's the one that sticks in my head because she said something, and I don't even remember what it was or when it was, about the record. And then she was sort of going, well, we've only 5 to go to break the British record, the English record, and 10 to go to beat the world record. So whatever. So she was the one that kept it in my head. But then, obviously, as it progressed closer, I remember being on Sky Sports News in the studio. I remember sort of doing interviews this is what when it made it sort of, you start to sit down and you can't dwell on it. But I remember I did interviews with every radio station in Northern Ireland. Like downtown, Eamon Holmes that did, when, although that was with the BBC, I think. So I've did interviews with him on Sky Sports, and I'm thinking, well, this is a big thing. You can't deny it. And the big thing then was, for me and the staff, was, let's keep this away from the guys. As much as we can. Let's never mention record. Let's just play the next game. A bit like when we had the points deducted from us, I made a decision. We're not going to talk about it in here. Let's just, somebody said, one game at a time, and it really, so it became a little bit like that. But after we get beat again at Bromley's one of them places that jumps up in my career a few times. But I remember it being like nearly a relief, I didn't realise how much pressure and stress it had put on the dressing room until after we'd been beaten, and that pressure lifted. And obviously by then it was impossible to keep it away from the players because they were every bit as aware of it as what we were, and the supporters was,
And it's interesting you say that, because I'm just looking at the scores here. Once you got beat by Cray for a record to go, we then went and scored 4 goals in 2 consecutive games straight after. So it sort of does suggest in a way, doesn't it, that mentally, because obviously players like, obviously the press that surrounds Wimbledon, I suppose you probably saw very much at that stage that they very much is a big story. So it's probably not surprised really that players get drawn into it a little bit. Did you feel the players sort of like after that sort of become a bit more free and then continue on with the campaign that you were doing so well in?
Yeah, no, yes, I do. And I think, if I'm honest, we all did. It would be easy for me to say, yeah, I was okay and, I could carry it. But listen, I don't care who you are. I had plenty of years' experience as a manager, but I've only ever broke one record, and that was it. So it wasn't as if I had a T-shirt in the wardrobe or a book to look back on, a diary of the last time I broke a record, how did I deal with this situation? So we were all sort of thinking on our feet and sort of trying to get through it. I do remember that there's obviously games when I managed for 3 years. There's lots of games when the atmosphere for our level of football was just ridiculous. It was off the planet, really, But I do remember the night we broke the record, because I did the thing in Sky Sports News in the studio, and I came straight to the game. And I think it was Fleet. It was Andy Sinton, because I know Andy, and we played Fleet at home, and I think that was when we made it equal it that night. But I remember, and I never, as much as people like to hear their names sung, I was never one for focusing on that. chants and singing. I love an atmosphere because it makes the ground. But I remember the supporters singing Anderson's Yellow and Blue Army from I walked out the tunnel until I walked back in at half time, and it never stopped. And I can guarantee you it didn't stop, because I've never been more aware of anything in my life. Going, I hope them guys aren't going to work tomorrow. Do you know what I mean? They won't be able to talk. So that was them playing their part and keeping it going and got us through. When you're putting that sort of pressure and you're playing for the sort of equal a British record, that's massive. It's massive that you've got that behind you, because the one thing the supporters weren't that night was edgy, and that, I think that really helped us.
And Hayes Lane, as you've mentioned there,
yeah,
we've already spoken about with you previously about the playoff semi-final there, but obviously the run came to an end there, as you've said, against Cray.
Yeah.
Did you sense that coming at all? I'll tell you what, I remember travelling down to that game. I was there that day. And I think we had a host of injuries. I think we had a large number of players out, and it just had that atmosphere of today's the day. Did you get that sense at any point?
Yeah, you do. As much as you, now listen, you can get that sense. I remember playing in the semi-final at Sutton, and Paul Smith doing his collarbone and Frankie going in goal, and I'm thinking we've no chance. And so, as much as you get it, sometimes you can be wrong, but you nearly feel like the gods are aspiring against you when it builds up. And I was very worried that, that they were said it was capable of winning, especially at their place. And it was nearly getting to the stage where you're going, we nearly need to get this off our back anyway, because it's just a real sort of noose around us now. It's a heavy weight to be carrying. So yes, I was aware of it. I was sorry, because you want it to go on as long as you want. Yeah, as long as it can. Sorry, but it sort of it felt like today was the day. It ended up being the day, and I woke up on the Sunday okay with it. Listen, as long as Celtic don't break it, I don't mind. Anybody else can break it, but if Celtic break it, I'm never doing another interview.
Does it count though now, really, if Celtic do it, with all due respect to the Scottish League at the moment?
No.
There should be an asterisk next to it.
Yes. Well, I'm all for that. I'm all for that.
So, yeah, Hayes Lane, as we go through, Hayes Lane obviously also brought back memories. Obviously, I'm sure if we can move forward to the Bromley playoff semi-final.
Yeah.
That we had that. What were your, when you were going into that I know we sort of fast forward a bit for that. What were your thoughts going into that game? Because Bromley was a difficult place to go to at any point, wasn't it, in terms of the ground and that. What were your thoughts? And obviously, with the early sending off, what did that do to your team talk and stuff like that?
Well, I was fine. I remember being really late to the game because I was trying to get through London. Myself and Johnny Morris, God bless him, he's no longer with us, the reserve team manager. I remember us being really late and me phoning JT to say, look, get the lads ready, get them kitted out. He knew the team anyway. So I remember that being quite stressful. But in many ways, it worked out okay because it sort of changed the guys' thought. They sort of went away from the game to wondering where's the manager, So when I got in, it was fine and a good laugh and, talking about the fines and that. And we tried to play it nice. And I was fine. I thought the team was good. I thought it was in reasonable form. But I do remember as soon as I walked in the tunnel, the referee was the referee who had done the game away at Hampton. And I had absolutely tortured him in the press about it. I thought the Hampton game, I thought he was embarrassing. I remember he sent off Lee O'Leary, and I remember my statement in the press was, I think the game's too big for him. I think the game was too big because the size of the crowd that we bring, and it should have been given to someone who could deal with that size of crowd. It should have an official like that. And I walked into the tunnel at Bromley, and who's standing there? The same referee. And he actually said to me, is this one too big for me? That's what he said to me in the tunnel.
Wow.
And from that moment, I thought, But, the one thing I would have to say is that it was 2 yellow cards for Wes Daly. Yeah. As much as he couldn't wait to get them out of his pocket, I couldn't sort of say he'd done something against the rules. There were 2 yellow cards. Our big disappointment that night was just before they scored, Frankie Hard was fouled in the corner. Blatant foul, held back, and the cross that came in, they scored off. I remember that being our issue, not the sending off. When you're 1-0 down and you go down to 10 men, you're always going to be up against it. But I thought we had a go. I remember we decided to. I think we played like a 4-3-2. That ended up nearly being a 2-5-2. Do you know what I mean? We pushed the fullbacks on as much as we could. We had a couple of chances. I remember Fergie having a good chance. But it's sort of Russian roulette stuff at that. It's not a game that we could control then. It was a game that we had to just let the train run away and hopefully get something, and as it turned out, we didn't,
I must be. I'm amazed that a referee can get away with a comment, a very much off-the-cuff comment about this game being too big for me. Did you, at that point, did you ever think? Had you done your team talk before then, or did your team talk change, thinking this guy is not going to need much encouragement to give you anything, give you any yellow cards or straight reds?
I hadn't seen him before the game because I was late, so I'd gone straight in the dressing room and dealt with the guys. But we did, when we get out onto the pitch, we did get the staff to go around and say, look, be careful, be careful of him because, have a look at who he is and just be wary of it. And Wes has just made it. I think the big problem with Wes was, I can't remember, my memory's as good as this, but it was 2 incidents within 5 minutes of each other.
They were, yeah.
That was the problem. And, I haven't seen him for ages. I remember having a laugh with him a few years ago when I bumped into him and he was going, all right. I says, all right, you got me the sack. And he was just laughing. He didn't get me the sack. We needed promotion and we didn't get it. And that was one game within it. But I felt that it wasn't the place for me. Playoffs was because the year before when we played Fisher, half my team was in the stand.
Yeah.
And then to go to Bromley and be down to 10 men that early, sometimes there's not much you can do about stuff like that,
Yeah, it's such fine margins, isn't it? Because the following season when we did get up, it was with, we'll say a little slice of luck, shall we say, away at Staines.
A lot of luck.
To be fair, I always say at the Brownie, to Brownie, you got my luck. Because I remember, and that's another one. I remember playing golf the day of the game. I was down to go, but I just didn't think it was right that I was there, But I remember playing golf, and I'd got a ticket for someone, and I can't off the top of my head remember who it was. And I said, on the one sort of thing you have to do is text me the score. And so that I'm aware, and I was playing golf and I got the text 1-0 down. And I remember looking at my watch and thinking, it must have been late on because I'm thinking, this is nearly over now, and it's still 1-0. But I think what had happened is in the height of the celebrations, they'd forgotten to text me and then sort of text me like after it. So yeah, no, but to be fair, Terry, Terry got a bit of luck that year. He didn't need much luck after that, did he?
He did all right.
Yeah.
The Hayes Lane as well, just to go back to that quickly, it was a ground that we'd actually struggled at a little bit. We had one there in the league that season before the playoffs. And we were just going to ask you about some of the players that you managed in our time, but talking about Bromley reminded me of Steve Gerrard. Not Steve Gerrard.
Steve Gerrard, the centre forward, the young lad.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember him. I remember him being his best game really being at Chelmsford.
Chelmsford, yeah.
I think he scored at Chelmsford. Big centre forward, like a stropping big white lad centre forward. That's the one you're talking about, isn't it?
Yeah, it is Steve. It was. Did he share his name with Steve Gerrard? Was it actually
Nick,
Gerrard?
Nick, you played what? You pulled one out there. I can't remember. Goddard, you mean?
Goddard, that's it. Steve Goddard.
Yeah. That's it. Thank you.
Yeah. Don't ask me about names. I've got my own tattoo on my arm.
I just remember calling him Stevie G, so I was just like, okay.
Stevie G, yeah. And he was one of them. He could have been anything he wanted to be. You know, he was young, he was big, strong. You know, nearly like a Norman Whiteside. You know, that sort of developed early, but just football was just fun for him. He never seen the other side of it. I think if he'd had the attitude to go with his ability, he could have gone on to a much higher level. Yeah.
Yeah, Shane Smelts.
Yeah, but the whole thing, it's funny that the guy, believe it or not, I actually did have a contact in New Zealand. I know it's hard to believe. One of the guys I played with from home, Mervyn Montgomery and another lad, Noel Barkley, who'd both gone out there and played professionally and were coaching within that league. An agent had come to me and said, look, I've got a guy from New Zealand, Shane Smelts. He's been in the international team. And I got in touch with Mervyn. And funny enough, I seen him in the summer. He was home in the summer and he spent a couple of days in London. So I had a couple of beers with him. We were talking about it, you know, and how well he'd sort of done. But anyway, brought Shane in. You know, one of them straight away, you knew that, I know it's stupid, but you knew he was always going to be better the higher he went because he was silky. He had a real good attitude about him, nice lad. Didn't really enjoy, although he had a good laugh and enjoyed the club and the crowd, didn't really enjoy the style of football we were playing. I don't blame him. The pitches weren't brilliant either, which sort of contributed to how we played as well. But turned out to be, I remember sitting watching him score against Italy in the World Cup thinking, my God, you know, I managed him and he's just scored against the world champions, you know, as I'm sure everyone else did. I remember going to watch him at Craven Cottage and
yes,
as always,
yeah, we went. I was
going to say there was supporters there, and he was amazed at that, you know. And I still, to be fair, still speak to him the odd time on, not so much on Twitter, but privately on Twitter. You know, the message, I'd sort of text him or say hello and that. I know he speaks to Bassi a bit more than that. You know, Bassi's always giving him stick. One of the ones the other week was he'd put a video of him scoring out in Australia, you know, screamer, you know, and Bassi says, nearly as good as your goal in the Surrey Senior Cup final, you know. Or it was a tattoo or a painting or something, that was it, you know, of the goal. And he went, have you not got one of the goal in the Surrey Senior Cup final, Shane, you know. But no, good lad, and again, not really surprised he went on to do what he did, if I'm being honest.
So you're still in touch with Simon Bassi, obviously.
Yeah, very regular. Yes, I am. Yeah, and to be fair, I still speak to Neil. Okay. I still speak to Arj every now and again. I drop him a text and get one back, and you know, there's definitely a love affair going on there. We get on great. So I would always sort of speak to him every now and again, sometimes about everything, sometimes about nothing, but whatever it is, you're not finding anything out about it.
And we wouldn't ask either.
yeah, sure you wouldn't.
No, not at all. Just give me a second. I've just got to just change some of my script here. Hold on. Might be a little bit unfair then, and tell us if it is, but how much have you got to see of then our current squad, and what are your thoughts about it at the moment?
I haven't seen the team this season. I try and get down once a year, twice a year. I'm due, to be fair, there's a few of us are meant to be going Sunday. John Main's going, Luke Moore, who's the other one? There's about 4 or 5 or 6 of us. We always go out at Christmas and have a drink, and decided to go to the Charlton game Sunday. But at the minute, I'm struggling to get there. I've got a speed awareness course that I have to go to. That's a whole different story. But so I haven't seen the team this year. I've watched little clips on TV. but I haven't seen the team live,
Okay.
so I couldn't comment. What I would say is that I know that I've seen the league position. I think last year was exceptional. I do think that when you look at the club's budget now, from being the biggest team in the division when I managed it, it's fair to say that they're massively punching above their weight to be in the division they're in now, and to stay in it is a real achievement. That and I think people need to. That's the hardest thing to get supporters to realise, to be honest, guys, because the club they've had little blips of failure, and they are little blips, but it's been a steam train of success from the minute it started till now. So sometimes reality needs to check in, if you know what I mean.
And also, yeah, I think you mentioned earlier about players leaving and saying, why on earth would they want to leave this club at this moment in time? We don't quite have that now. We are just another club to a lot of players now, and size comes into it. We had Jake Reeves, who we spoke to on the show at the start of the season, and he loves the club. He's absolutely loves everything about AFC Wimbledon, but he's a professional footballer that's being offered a big contract and the chance to play at a stadium that holds 20,000 people every week. So we can't compete with that realistically.
No, and I think you have to understand that, and you also have to appreciate it's people's profession. And if I offered to double your wages, you'd think long and hard about going to do a job where I'm doubling your wages. So that is part of it. I think there's two sides of it. The first one is that the stuff that I had to deal with that was out of the norm was I had to bring people who were used to playing in front of 300 to play in front of 3,000. So as much as it was easy to get them in the door, it was then you then had to monitor whether they could handle that. Whereas I think now everyone that walks in your door should at least be able to handle what the crowd is, because it's not the biggest crowd in the division. But then the more difficult thing for ours is hanging on to it, because people will come and, especially when you're successful, people will come and look at you and say, "Wow, let's take him," and that's just the nature of the beast. And when one good player walks out and you're working with a budget that's, I'm guessing, and Eric will correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm guessing is in the bottom six of the division, then you're always going to struggle to bring someone. One of your good ones walks out the door. You don't go down the shops and get 2 pints of milk and another striker. It doesn't happen like that.
That's what brings me on to actually a point I was thinking. So you're still involved in non-league, and you're still doing the non-league show, aren't you? Is that right?
Yeah, on pot. Yep.
So have you been able to get? Obviously, one of the things that I'm always very keen on, and I think it sort of goes to a few clubs have done, it's Peterborough, Luton, or the likes. Is there still the talent down in non-league that could easily go from a conference or maybe a Conference South into a League Two to a League One club? Yeah,
absolutely. Jimmy Vardy's proved that in the last 10 years, hasn't he? Albert Abdullah, who's at Villa now, but was at Harrow. James Shea, I sold him to you. Simeon Akinola, who's not Barnet. I know they're not, but yes, there is Nuggets. There is Oliver Hawkins, who's not Portsmouth.
Was it Dagenham Redbridge, wasn't he? Yeah, before.
Yeah, and to be fair, listen, if I see anyone, believe me, I've spoke to Bassi about lots of players. Lots of players who I've always said, listen, he's creating a bit of attention, and to be fair to Bass, well, you would know this. I don't think I've ever said one that Bassi hadn't watched.
He does watch a lot of football, doesn't he?
He is, if I go Oliver Hawkins, he went, yeah, seen him twice. I don't know. What do you think of this? What do you think of that? The one that came out of the woodwork was obviously James Shea, because he sort of turned up at my door from Arsenal. So I think that was the only time I'd brought someone their attention that they'd never heard of. Yeah. But I would always sort of say to Bass, look at him, he's creating a bit of, he's a bit of attention. And also Boss would phone me and go, listen, we've heard about him. Do you know anything about him, But obviously what tends to happen now is because I am retired and I don't really watch an awful lot of football at the moment. I don't know why that will change, but I go and play. More chance of me sort of finding a good golfer now than a good footballer. But if the club ever asks me to do anything or give me opinion on anything, as you know yourself, I'm only too willing to do that. I have a massive respect for the place, but I actually just like it, and I like the people there. So the staff I still get on well with, and still speak to, as I said, and still wish them every success. And it's still the first result I look for on a Saturday.
And just before we let you go, Dave, I have to say, we go back to James Shea. We interviewed him a couple of weeks ago, about a month ago, didn't we? Beginning of the season, we went to Luton. Have to say, he's the nicest guy we've met.
Yeah.
Did he ever have I can't believe he's a goalkeeper. Did he ever? Have you ever seen him unhappy or angry or anything? Because the guy, we spoke to him and he couldn't be nice enough to us in terms of what he said to us. But he seems to be. Have you ever seen him angry?
I remember one night at Harrow, and this is absolutely true as well. I can't remember who we were playing, but I remember, and I haven't get sent off from a dugout as many times as people would like you to believe. It's one of them myths, but I get sent off. I'd had a whole row with the referee because, as usual, they were rubbish, But so get sent off. I think it might have been the only time at Harrow I got sent off. But I wouldn't swear that in court, let me tell you. Anyway, I get sent off, and as you know, Harrowburg, the dugout's behind the goal. James Shea's in the far goal, defending for us. I have to walk off the pitch, go round the side to get off. So I get to the bottom of the tunnel, and as I get to the bottom of the tunnel, I'm watching James Shea, and he's tried to pass the ball out. He's hit the pass. The centre forward's intercepted it, run round him, he's brought him down, and he gets sent off. and I'd always said to him about, listen, be very careful. He liked to show people he could pass the ball and he could play out. And I always used to say to him, look, be really careful, Shazy, especially on the surfaces we play on. Don't be too clever, And I'd said it to him 2 or 3 times. And anyway, he gets caught, and so I'm in the dressing room, and he's probably thinking the last thing he needs to do now is walk in the dressing room because I'm raging. There's only me and him in there. He's had to walk in the door. He doesn't know I've seen it. He thinks I'm in the dressing room, and he's come in. The gloves hit the back wall before he came through the door, and I was just sitting there, and I think he thought I was going to roast him, and I just laughed. I just went, every day's a school day, son. What did I tell you? He went, yeah, gaffer, yeah, nah. So he was raging at himself. And I said, well, look, Shazy, I'm in here because I get sent off and I'm 50, so it can happen. But, but he would I only ever seen his anger taken out on himself at his frustration of something he did wrong. And I used to say to him, that's fine. But if you're going to write down something you're not happy with, I want you to write something beside it that you are happy with, because you can go down a negative road if you're not careful. And he'd so many positives that I would always say, if you write a negative, put a positive, and it'll make you feel a bit better, My kicking was crap, took my cross as well. That sort of scenario. So I would always say at the players who are sort of beat themselves up, because it can take confidence out of you, and there's no need to, But the biggest credit I could give to Shazy was his first game for Harrow was, I can't even remember where it was. It was in the middle of nowhere on a Tuesday night in a League Cup game. We get stuck at South Mims. It was gridlocked. So he's never met anybody, and the coach can't come off at South Mims to pick him up because we'd never get back on it. So we phoned the physio and said, look, the goalkeeper's meeting there. Find the goalkeeper and put him in the car with you, and we'll go to the game. And so anyway, we turn up the game. which was a couple of divisions below where we were, so it wasn't the nicest place in the world. And I'm glad I don't remember the name, because I wouldn't say that against anyone. I managed at Hendon when I used to love to watch people come in the gate because no one ever fancied it. So anyway, we get there and he plays the game. We win comfortably. He's got very little to do. There's 3 men and a dog at it. We come in, we're in the bar, and the Champions League is on the TV, and Arsenal are playing in it.
Of course.
And a year before, he was on the bench for Arsenal in the Champions League. And I said to him, along the lines of, funny old game, innit, you know? And he said, no, he said, I loved it. He said, I loved it, being there, it's real. And I think if you spoke to him about his time at Harrow, he's got an affection for it, because it got him back into competitive football, really, you know?
Yeah, you know, he definitely said that, and said that actually moving and playing with Harrow should have perhaps come. He probably should have done it earlier, I think he said. Great education for him.
I think his big problem is if he was 4 inches taller, he'd still be at Arsenal. I think that's his only issue. Is the only issue that's against him is something that he can't improve, because if he could improve it, believe me, he would stay out all night to improve it. And that's why I was delighted he got the chance to go to Wimbledon for both parties. I think he played over 100 games for the club, didn't he? Which he did. And believe me, it works out about £2.75 a game on the transfer fee, let me tell you, because the club got a good deal out of that as well. But that's fine, you know, everyone was a winner, you know.
And again, it's one of those bizarre things. We were talking to James actually about the fact that he was at Dagenham at the same time. When we played our first season back in the Football League, he was actually on the bench for Dagenham the day we won for the first time in the Football League as AFC Wimbledon. And of course, he's now at Luton, who he played against for Luton's first game back. So for Luton's first home game back in the Football League after their relegation, he was in the Wimbledon team that beat them that day. So it's funny. It's funny.
Unbelievable. Yeah. It really is. Some of the things that get chucked at you are just, you know. Well, in tonight's game, Sam Allardyce has just taken over Everton. Yeah. You know, they're playing West Ham. There's Pardew's got to go back to Palace on Saturday, and it's always that's the way the game is, you know.
Yeah.
Always throws it up, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Well, before we finish off, Dave, we've got a couple of quick games to play with you, if you don't mind.
I'll tell you if I mind in a minute.
Well, I'll just put it this way: you can't be any worse than Stu is at any game ever, so don't worry about that. Basically, first game we've got is a very simple. Well, actually, let's do it in reverse this time. So we've got a new game this season. We call it Play With, Sleep With, Avoid. We like to give you 3 players, names of 3 players. And in your case, I suppose, instead of playing with, we'll change it to manage, shall we say?
Yeah.
Which player of the 3 you'd most like to manage, have in your team? Which player you'd most like to share a hotel with on an away trip? Share a hotel room with on an away trip?
Yeah.
And then finally, which one you would just totally avoid? Did you ever actually have any overnight stays with AFC Wimbledon? You wouldn't have done, would you?
Yeah, we play Exeter in the FA Cup.
Of course, of course.
How could you forget that?
Great
they are.
Yeah, to be fair, that, and I know, I hope you have time for this, but that was my best 4 hours in football. Not the game. I'd sort of 6 or 7 lads come over from Belfast, close mates of mine, who became Wimbledon supporters big time, to the point of when I was at Harrow, they came over to see me, but went to the Wimbledon game and then came back to Harrow to see me with Bassi, you know. Brilliant. So anyway, they flew into Bristol, drove down to Exeter. They came in and had breakfast with the team. Ava was brilliant. Says, bring the lads in, let them have some food with us. We got a big carry-out for the bus on the way back. They put that on and then went downtown and spent it in a pub with all our supporters. But the coach on the way back was just... it was just one of them things. There was seasoned professionals in there at our level, Steve Watson, Roscoe Desane, you know, all the lads who had been around a long time, and all of us to a man. I mean, I worked at it. It's on like 2,000 games as a manager, but that bus trip on the way back was my best 4.5 hours in football. It was just, if you had a video on it, you'd have sold 1 million copies. But when we get off it, unlike when I took over the club, when we get off it, the bus driver told, it was Gray's bus, Mickey Woodward let us have the bus. Mickey phoned the club the next day to say, the bus driver came in to say, what an absolute pleasure to take a Wimbledon, lads. Great banter. The bus was cleaned up as we get off it, because I always made sure that. Black bags, any empties. But believe me, it was a riot on the way back. I think with a sing-song, I think the driver joined in, It was, so I'm sorry I digress, but that was an overnight stop, yeah, Exeter.
I have to say that, Exeter, how they get us all in the away terrace? Exeter's got the smallest terrace ever, isn't it?
Unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Jam-packed, wasn't it? It was unreal that day.
Coming off, I mean, we get battered. We ended up, we did all right second half, but
they weren't good, weren't they?
Oh, they were different class. But we scored a goal, and it was a whole occasion, wasn't it? But coming off was like, you think, and listen, it wasn't at Bromley. It wasn't 20 minutes on a tube to get there. It was a long, long way, and to see that amount, and I was so proud because my best mates had come from Belfast, and when they came in the bar after, they went, how was that? Is that what that's like every week? I went, yeah, it's like that every week, lads, and it was just one of them real, outside of the result, it was a perfect day in football for me,
Yeah, that was a great day for us all. It's funny, were you at the FA Cup game with them a few years back? Did you travel up to that one?
No.
Okay.
I went to the home game, me and Brownie. I remember we went to the home game, and it was funny, and I know you want to get rid of me, but
no,
I have to tell you
all.
this.
No, we're enjoying it. Trust me.
I would pay good money for you to find another club in world football that has two ex-managers singing "Who Were You When Who Were You When You Were Us?" Or where were you when you were us? Is that the song?
It is, yeah.
I was the best. I was me and Brownie were singing it. Ask the lads. I was with Jeff. Is it Northcott? The comedian.
Yeah.
Ask him. Me and Brownie were singing it, and it was just so. I don't think there's many clubs in the world would have two ex-managers singing "Where Were You When You Were Us."
It's one of those songs that's it's one of the songs that started, and remember it started, and I went to you, Nick. I was trying to work it out, and I went, oh yeah, and then you just think the genius behind it.
There's somebody should have. There's some clever people in the world. That's all I'm saying, because I laughed my head off. And to be fair, so yes, I was there and I enjoyed it, and I would say as well that the another thing I like about the club is all that stuff with franchise. The club let you make your own mind up as a supporter. They don't say it has to be this way. You have to do that. You don't do this. They sort of let you deal with it in your own way, and there's never any pressure on you to. I think that's class. That's a real class thing. Yeah. I've always but I'm very much of the camp. Never forgive, never forget. That's me. That's me, and if you know me, that's me. I'll probably get it tattooed on my arm one day. So, but but I just like that the club don't push that on people. You deal with it and I just think that's a real class thing.
And the only reason I brought it up actually was because that day I know there was a few. I think Terry Brown might have actually gone that day. I'm not sure, to the very first time he played them. But it was similar to the Exeter game in some respects, as we took a huge number of fans. And despite the fact we just lost to that lot, you just felt that the whole experience was actually a positive one. And the same with Exeter. We lost the game. But from start to finish, the day was just incredible. It's just a great, great memory for us all.
Yeah. I think that, when they make the movie, and I believe the script's being sort of written at the moment, you always wonder where to finish it. I always thought it should be finished when the Liverpool walked out the tunnel for the FA Cup game. I went, well, that's it. That's the finish. And then the promotion happened at Wembley, and you go, yeah, that's it. Then we've gone above them in the league, and you go, well, that's it. But the problem with the football club is you never know when the finish is. It's just that it's a Hollywood movie.
Me.
Well, I'm trying to dodge this quiz, I'm trying to.
You've not heard the people were going to say yet.
Yeah, that's what I'm worried about.
Do you know what? I don't think I've been too harsh on this one. So it's manage, sleep with, avoid, and the three names we've drawn out of the hat really were Matt Everard, Martin Randall, and Mickey Haswell.
Okay, to play for me, Matt Everard. To share a room with Mickey Haswell, and to avoid at all costs, especially when he's drinking, Martin Randall. So there you go. That's easy peasy. Mickey would have the room perfect. You know, I think he's a window designer, but anyway, it'll be a perfect room. Matt Everard I felt for him. He had really adjusted to the level and then got the injury. Just the easiest man in the world to manage. Just the easiest man in the world. And Martin Randall is a top man who came into the club, and you know what people probably didn't understand is he got a lot of stick as a player, and he'd always say, it's no problem, I can deal with that, it leaves the youngsters alone. So he would go out and front that because he could deal with it, and still loves his time at the club. But when he's had a drink, he's an absolute nightmare, as you can imagine. And he's not on his own there, you know, but he's so that's my answers, and it was much easier than I thought.
I must say, Martin Randall, I used to always love Martin Randall, just for the fact that he could look after himself, looked like he had big shoulders, always worked hard. I must say, I've always been a person that I could live with someone not having ability or not the greatest players. Not that he wasn't, but if they worked hard and give everything, then I could live with that all day long.
Yeah, I think, and what you didn't get to see was the dressing room. Brilliant in the dressing room, you know, brilliant when it's not going well. And, you know, listen, managing AFC Wimbledon and playing for AFC Wimbledon in my years is you've died and gone to heaven. You know, it's like you've gone from playing in front of 200 to 3,500, whatever it was. You know, you get people stopping you for photographs and autographs, which is something that the players wouldn't have dealt with before or again. But when you're in a bad run and the team's not playing well, there's people who show for the ball and there's people who don't. And when you're in front of 3,500, you have to be a big character, even if you're not playing well and it says not playing well, to keep showing, especially in his position. He always done that. No matter how bad he was or we were, he always sort of stood up and was counted. And it's something that not everyone would recognise. And I don't expect them to, but it's something that I myself and the staff were always aware of, you know.
And also, just a random memory, but I think during that unbeaten run, we were losing at home to Tooting and Mitcham. I don't know if you remember this. I think Martin Randall might have scored a late equaliser that day to preserve the unbeaten record, so I always remember him.
Yeah, I remember, the one I remember is Boysley away.
Oh, yes.
Late, because I think Matt Everard got injured that day. I think that's the day Matt got injured with his knee. But I remember Randall, he might even have come off a bench round, but he scored the winner, like, I don't know. It was late. It was like Man United time. It was one of them. It was like, and I remember that. So yeah, it's funny how say games stick in your head. You know, the Tooting one for you, the Boysley one for me. You know.
And wasn't Bashley in the New Forest? Wasn't that the most prettiest away game ever? Wasn't it? I remember.
Oh, it was unbelievable. It was.
I couldn't believe there was a ground there.
Yeah, and couldn't believe that we got so many people into it. You know, it's another. Yeah. It's just one of them. You know, and I haven't looked back. I don't, as much as you would think. I don't tend to look back that often at it. You know, but when I get in interviews like this, it's great fun because it all comes back to you. You know. But no, yeah, so great, some great times, great trips. You know.
And one more game, if we may. It's not so much a game, more of a very simple, got a list of either-or questions, and it's just if you pick your answer, basically, the first one that comes into your head kind of thing. So, we'll just run through these very, very quickly. So if we start with Gary Neville or Jamie Carragher?
Oh, both very good, but I'm a Man United fan. Well, closet one. I lived up there with Big Whiteside. So I'll go Neville.
Late nights or early mornings?
Used to be late nights. It's now early mornings.
Owls or dogs?
So owls was that?
It was indeed, yeah.
I don't know anybody's got a pet owl.
It's so random, Nick.
We had this on the other week because Stu, for some reason, Stu got himself confused with Sheffield Wednesday or something and said owls are not dogs, which he's quite right, they're not.
Well, I'm gonna go owls.
Nice. Stu, you're gonna love this next one. Wicked or Priscilla, Queen of the Desert?
I think you're talking about TV shows, aren't you? Or theatre shows. I'll go Wicked. Mm-hmm. Although
Stu's
West Side Story was always the one.
Stu's a big Priscilla fan.
Camp Gangs.
Caroline Barker or Lindsay Hipgrave?
There's only one answer there. And no, I'm not going to say no because definitely Kaz. It's got to be Kaz. She's been brilliant to me over the last 10, 11 years.
Mm-hmm. Mushy peas or garden peas?
Garden peas. Mm-hmm. Well, look, you ever seen me? Both.
Will Grigg or David Healy?
Oh my God. Well, to be fair, it's got to be Healy, although Will Grigg's song's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Richard Butler or Steve Butler?
Steve. Richard was good, but used to go over far too easy. I used to get embarrassed. He went down. And mind you, he'd make a living today the way people are today, but I was never the greatest of them. Although, listen, I always used to say about Richard Butler, he always reminded me of a dog chasing a bag going around a park. He wouldn't stop running, he would just run forever. But Steve Butler was a proper captain, so I'll go Steve.
Mm-hmm. Alexa Bliss or Paige?
I have no idea. Who are they?
They are WWE wrestlers. Female wrestlers. Female lady wrestlers.
I nearly said Caroline Barker there, but that slaughtered me. Don't like fighting women. You never win.
No, that's
very wise.
Yeah. And then finally, when you're making a cup of tea, when your daughter's not making one for you, do you make it by putting the bag in first, or do you put the milk in first?
No, bag first.
Yes, good man.
Bag first.
Mm-hmm.
Or as I remember Billy Connolly saying about his granda, when Billy Connolly's wife asked his granda, who's an old traditional Scotsman, how many sugars he took, and he said, "I don't know, ask your grandma." Because he never made one. So I'm a bit old school.
Yeah, it sounds like Stu, to be honest. Do you know James Shea actually said milk first? He's the only one. I know.
I'd have put him on a transfer list if I'd known that.
Yeah.
He said it and then realised he'd made a mistake. He sort of, I think by the silence, he realised he'd made an error.
Yeah.
And then we told Jake Reeves about it, didn't we? And then, Jake gave a grief about it.
Jake Reeves said that Neil Ardley was not sure whether he'd keep James this season or let him go. And then when he found out he went milk first, he was like, right, out you go. See you later, James.
He's gone.
Yeah. Dave, thank you very much for your time. Before you go, just wanted to touch on Dermot Drummy, who tragically, really, totally out of nowhere this week, passed away. You knew him a little bit. Just wondering if you had a few words about him or your experiences of him. Yeah,
well, to be fair, I knew Dermot through Matt Gray, who was Dermot's assistant at Crawley. Matt's a big mate of mine, and we would play lots of golf together. I went to a couple of their games, but met him. I think the best story I could say is we went to the Cheltenham game, Crawley Cheltenham. My best mate PJ is a Johnston, so obviously Gary Johnston was manager at Cheltenham, and we ended up in Dermot's office after the game. 0-0 game towards the end of the season. Awful game, but we ended up in Dermot's office, and I think we drunk the club dry. It was just one of them lovely times, and when you hear the news this week, I go straight back to that, because he was great storyteller, unbelievable host, real genuine nice guy, and a proper football guy, knew his football inside out, could take the mickey like you wouldn't believe. We were in hysterics we were in there for hours. I think we were in it for like 3 hours after the game. It was good, and and for someone that I would admit I didn't know really that well, I just had a real affection, and it's real tragic news, and obviously, if that's my affection for him, I really feel for his family and his close friends.
Great, Dave. Thank you very much.
Okay, pleasure.
Right, despite all that, we still do have Abdu Are You to play. As every week, we have to squeeze it in. It's the big attraction of the show, I think. I feel. More comments about this than anything else, possibly.
Or how rubbish I am.
Yeah, pretty much.
I've been shocking recently.
You have. Maybe you'll get the cryptic clue this week.
Maybe not.
This player that Jimmy's gone to meet this week, he thought was perhaps famous for creating a chocolate bar.
I haven't got a clue.
Oh well, never mind.
Same old.
I thought you might invent someone named like Jim Snickers or something.
I was thinking about like Nestle and things like that, but no.
No. Okay. Might narrow it down if I say he was a defensive midfielder who played 11 games for us. Just 11 games.
11 games.
Yeah, didn't score any goals, but he was signed by Dave Anderson. He was a Dave Anderson player, hence why I've chosen him this week.
11 games.
Defensive midfielder.
I think it's like Wes Daly. Maybe because it rhymes with dairy. Well, it doesn't really rhyme with dairy, but it's close to dairy.
In the same way that Plymouth is close to Port.
That is a derby.
It's not a derby.
They said they
even said it on football. They even said it on the TV.
It's 160 miles apart, but it's along the coast.
It doesn't matter. It's not a derby.
Anyway, no, I can't. 11 games.
Yeah.
11 games, and that you have to remember. This is like nearly, as we're going to say to Dave, this is nearly like 10 years ago, isn't it? More than that.
As we did say to Dave.
Oh, wow. No, I ain't got a clue.
Okay. All right. Final clue then. He was a member of an England representative side.
Wow. I'm trying to think of a defensive midfielder. Christian? No, he played more than 11 games. What am I going on there? Crikey.
Yeah, and he scored for us. This player never scored for us.
No, you've done me on this one.
Okay. Anagram then?
Yeah, if I can.
Trout's Cycle.
Trout's Cycle. No, I'm done on this one. I can't believe you picked. I know why you picked the Dave Anderson player, but wow. What an era. No, I'm done.
It was Scott Curley.
He played for the deaf representative. He played for England deaf team, didn't he?
Yeah, I'm not sure if it was the deaf team. I think it was a disabled team.
Sorry, yes. Yes, but he was deaf because he did so well to fair communicate better than a lot of other players who can obviously hear what's going on around him, but God, only 11 games.
Yeah, I know, that surprised me as well when I did that check. And obviously Curly for Curly.
Curly Worthy. I wouldn't have got it. I wouldn't have got it on that though. Well, thanks for that. What's that? What's that? Is that like 2 or 3 weeks now on the trot that I've failed to get anything?
I think it's more than that. Let's be honest. God, you might get more lucky in a competition this week, Stu, which I'm sure you're allowed to enter.
Cool, thank you. What's that?
Well, we actually have 2 competitions to mention. One is the results of one, and the other one is a new one. So let's start with the old one first. On Facebook on the weekend, we had Martin Brett from Voice of the Beehive, and he gave away one of his band's albums, an I Ludicrous album, to the first person to reply with the correct answer to Kevin Boris's question about which South London non-league team Erzen Utschuma played for.
Oh, yeah.
I knew that. He joined where he first left. I think he went to Peterborough. Did he Peterborough?
Yeah, Peterborough have done the old non-league scene, didn't they? But yeah, I do. Yeah. I know who it is because I remember the story.
And who was it? Who was the
Dulwich Hamlet
team? It was indeed Dulwich Hamlet, and the winner, first person to respond to that on our Facebook Live video, was Mr. Cliff Bench. So, Cliff, well done. We shall be in touch with you shortly to arrange your copy of the said album. Very, very well done. We also have another competition, which we're going to be running all week. So if you go onto our Twitter, at 9YRS Podcast, we have got some beautiful Plough Lane posters to give away. I say some. We've got one. We have one Plough Lane poster, A3 print. These are done by Matthew G. Wood Design, at Matthew G. Wood, J.I. Wood. And basically all you need to do is find the tweet on our Twitter page. It'll be pinned to our profile page as you're listening to this. Head on over, retweet it, and follow both ourselves and Matthew, and his account will be in that tweet. Follow us both, retweet the tweet, and then next week we shall pick a winner at random to receive a beautiful A3 print Plough Lane poster, a picture of which is also on our Twitter page. So at 9YRS Podcast to win that.
And excellent print it is next time.
It is.
It's very
beautiful.
good. Very good.
Yes, we'll be very jealous if you win that. Of course, we can. I don't see why we can't enter, Stu, but we need an independent adjudicator to make sure we don't cheat.
We would never cheat.
Of course. Never.
Never. We'll never consider doing that.
No, sir. Not at all. Not us. Never. Not at all. Okay. That's pretty much it. Now, in terms of looking ahead to the weekend, we have got Charlton on Sunday. It's going to be part of the BBC's live 2 o'clock kickoff roundup thing that they do. And we'll be presenting live from there on Facebook as well, facebook.com/9YRS Podcast. We're not going to go into too much detail now, we don't have the time. So suffice to say, we are looking forward to welcoming the Charlton manager, aren't we, Stu? Big, warm welcome for him.
Is he anybody special, is he?
He's going to be the guy that mysteriously, for some bizarre reason, has got 8 men in black suits and bulletproof vests.
That's just for his ego.
Surrounding him as he makes his way from the dugout to the changing rooms because, he struggles with this. So,
yeah, if I'm being truthful, I'd rather he gets no publicity because I think he just... Do you know what I would say? He's a very clever manager, by the way. He knows what he's doing. He's taking all the pressure off his team. So we've just got to really pretend he's not there, beat Charlton, and then give him hell afterwards. That'd be my advice.
2 quick questions then. 1, will Ricky Holmes score?
If we don't give him the ball, I hope not. Do you know what? I think if our game plan's proper and we try and take him out of the game, then we're okay. But if he gets on the ball, yes, he's a headache. Put it that way.
And a very quick prediction.
I've got a feeling we'll win 2-1.
Happy days.
Yeah.
Right. Well, that does bring to an end this week. Our job was very easy this week, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Easiest one ever.
Although we have done the work on interview though, to be honest with you, but.
That wasn't work. That was not. That was just so much fun.
Very enjoyable.
Yes, but thank you very much. I hope you all enjoyed it as well. Please let us know if you did. You can do so on Facebook, Twitter, all the usual channels at 9YRS Podcast. And other than that, all we've got time to say is thank you for listening. Thank you for joining me, Stu.
Thank you.
There we go. And join us next week. Every week we have this pause where I think, as Stu just zoned out again.
No, I was just trying to turn it over for the football.
All right, okay, priorities. The Apprentice is on now. Come on, Jade. Right, anyway, join us next week. We'll be speaking to Everton owner Farhad Mashiri about the club's aim of playing attractive, progressive football. Alexa Bliss, bag first, milk last, and we will speak to you again next week.